Hey, good morning, Gasoholics. It's a marvelous Monday. And I say marvelous because you're watching, you're breathing, you're alive, you're here. It's Monday. It's got to be marvelous. Thanks for tuning into GAAS. GAAS, the Great American Auto Scene. Since 1990, your source for information, a little bit of humor, and some trivia as well. Now, one of the things, and this may be trivia. Hi, Jay Black. Good morning to you. Former brands of cars made in the United States. Now, there's a whole list worldwide of vehicles that have been made or long gone. But in the U.S., the list is even longer than most countries, other countries. And since this is the Great American Auto Scene, let's look at the American stuff, okay? All right. Former brands. Now, when I can, I'll give you the ages or the years that they were produced, but I don't have all of that information. Ajax. Yeah, Ajax was a company that produced cars. It was a not too bad looking car. It was a nice car for the times. And it was early 1900s. The picture I'm looking at is of a sedan. And it looks pretty stylish for the time. Little keys from Ford, a little bit from Chevrolet, little Willys Knight mixed in there, but stylish nonetheless. Unfortunately, they couldn't hack it, and business was not there. American Motor Corporation. Now, this is a more recent company that's gone. Good morning, Debbie. How you doing this morning? Yes, breaking the music from the long time drive. All right, there we go. You're still on your way back to California. American Motors was formed in 1967. It was a combination of a number of different companies merging into one. Hudson, Nash, Rambler. All came together. Stayed in business until Chrysler purchased them. And when Chrysler purchased them, they put them out of business. Basically, they disassembled the company. Chrysler bought the American Motors Corporation only because they wanted the Jeep, the four-wheel drive technology. The Jeep has stayed on and is very popular, but the American Motors cars of the day are gone. No more American Motors products. American Simplex. Now, this company came into being in 1906 through 1910, and it was renamed the Amplex Company in 1910. Amplex, they lasted from 1910 to 1915. Really not much of a change there. They changed the name. It didn't change their reputation, and the car was gone. They were built in Indiana, of all places. Auburn. Now, we think about the Auburn Speedster, but Auburn was in business from 1900 through 1937, producing some stylish cars back in the day. And most of what we know is the Auburn Speedster. We think about that, but they had others. Now, when you go into New York, you think about Checker cabs, or at least I do, because Checker was the cab company. They made not only the cabs themselves, but they had the company that you got into their cab, and you had the telltale checkered stripe down the side of the vehicle, and Checker actually manufactured cars not only for taxis, but you could buy one as a regular daily driver as well. And they stayed in business for quite some time, but Checker, well, unfortunately, they went out of business in the late 1960s, early 1970s. They couldn't compete because of emissions and crash standards. The cost to meet those did not justify the number of vehicles they were producing. Their boxy cars pretty much stayed in style. They had the same style, let's put it that way, from the 50s through their end. They never really updated the body style. They improved bumpers and things of that nature, but the basic car looked the same for decades upon decades. Crossley. You remember the Crossley? They started out building radios. Became real popular during World War II, providing engines for generator sets. They put that engine in a car. Now, originally, the engine was made cheaply by steel stampings. The problem with the steel stampings is they tended to rust, and the engine would disappear before your very eyes because what did you use to cool them? Water. Water, rust, steel. It happened. They did go to a cast motor, and it did reasonably well, but the cars were small and underpowered for the time. Now, that car today, excellent fuel mileage, overhead cam design engine back in the 40s and 50s, but just not the car the people wanted in the 50s. And although they were in business from 1939, they ended their production in 1952. All right, here we go. Delorean. Now, why we're calling this an American company is because John Z. Delorean was based here in the U.S. The car was actually built in Europe, but it was considered an American company. It lasted for 2 years, 1981 through 1983. DeSoto. That was a division of Chrysler Corporation from 1928 to 1960. It was a car that competed against the Oldsmobiles and the Pontiacs from General Motors, but you know what? Chrysler saw the error of their ways, or at least they didn't want to support the DeSoto line, and it became merged with Chrysler, ended up being modified Chryslers, and they dropped it. Auburn, we did that. Checker, Cord, Crossley, Soto, Detroit Electric. Now, everyone's given kudos to Tesla for their electric cars and a few other companies that are out there, but Detroit Electric, from 1907 through 1939, built an electric car, and it was produced by Anderson Electric Car Company in Detroit. The company built 13,000 electric cars from 1907 until their demise in 1939. The reason, well, battery technology, motor technology, it just wasn't where it is today. Could Detroit Electric be a viable company today? Who knows? They might. There are startup electric companies coming out. Duesenberg. Doozy. Yes, they were in business starting in 1913. And beautiful luxury cars, but the market wouldn't support the costs, and they went under. Eagle. Now, Eagle was a marquee of Chrysler, but it was based on the AMC models, so it went away. They dropped the Eagle name in 1998 after a run from 1987 on. Now, many people think of Edsel as a Ford. Well, it was a Ford product, but when it first came out, it was a standalone brand. They tried their own dealerships, their own separate facilities, and called Edsel a new line of cars from Ford. As we all know, it didn't last very long, just about 3 years. Fraser and Fraser Nash. Fraser was a company, a kind of a merger with Kaiser Fraser, and they were in business only for a few years, 1946 to 1951. They were trying to capitalize on the resurgence of car sales after World War II. Didn't quite work. Fisker. Now, here's another hybrid electric car company. It's an electric vehicle. Well, it's a hybrid vehicle. It had an engine, used the General Motors 4-cylinder engine for power. They started in 2016. They went out of business, and then it opened up again as Karma. So actually, they started in 2011 as Fisker, stayed in business for 3 years, and I did like their styling a lot. They went out of business in 2014, restructured, opened up again in 2016, and yes, they are producing cars. Where do you find them? It's one of those best-kept secrets, I guess. They're out there someplace. General Motors decided they were going to produce a separate line of vehicles, and it was the economy vehicles, the small vehicles, something away from the mainstream of their big cars and trucks. Well, they called the cars Geo. The Geo line of vehicles from 1989 to 2004 was actually cars built by Suzuki, Isuzu, and others. They were not American-built cars. They were not GM products, although GM owned controlling interest in Isuzu, who provided some of the vehicles, the majority of the vehicles. They also owned a piece of Suzuki. They sold all that off during the restructure, and Geo went away. Henry J. Interesting car. I've had one. As a matter of fact, I bought it twice. Anyway, same car, part of Kaiser Fraser. It was an economy car. Again, they started a new dealership to sell these cars. They weren't sold through your normal Kaiser dealership. They looked like a shrunk Kaiser with fins, fastback. I loved them. I liked them. I'd love to have another one. They were only in business for just 4 years. Hudson, 1909 to 1957, part of the AMC merger. Imperial. Now, Imperial started out as its own company, then became part of Chrysler and became a Chrysler brand. It was pretty much dropped in 1983. Jordan, not Air Jordan, not Michael Jordan, no relation. And this was a company founded in 1916 in Ohio by Ned Jordan, a former advertising executive. And it did all right. They stayed in business until 1931. The Depression got the best of them. Kaiser, as we talked about, became part of Fraser, and they were only in business for a short time, 1945 to 1953. They merged with Willys Overland to form Willys Motor Corporation out of Toledo, Ohio. You know more as the Jeeps. And John Mosley, we got a lot of people commenting here, and very quickly. And Debbie Bradshaw had a Geo Metro. I'm sorry, sweetie, but that wasn't a bad car. It was a Suzuki. Lafayette, United States-based automobile manufacturer founded in 1919. Interesting. LaSalle, that became a division of General Motors, but they merged it in with Cadillac, and the LaSalle Marquis disappeared. Marquette, another General Motors brand. Now, Marquette can still be found, that name, on electronic equipment like welders, engine analyzers, things of that nature, but no longer any cars. Maxwell. Now, if you watch Jack the comedian, I can't think of his name right now. Jack Benny, that's what it was. He had a Maxwell, and Roscoe was the driver of this car. Maxwell merged into become the Plymouth. They lasted from 1904 to 1925, and it is one of the marquees of the Chrysler Corporation, as it became part of and became basically the Plymouth, which they killed off anyway. Mercer, 1909 to 1925, they made some high-performance sports cars of the time. The Mercer 35 Runabout, probably the most famous. Mercury, now Ford started them in 1938 and killed them in 2011. Why? Well, when all you're doing is badge engineering, you don't get much brand loyalty. Merkur. Now, this was another attempt by Ford to start a small compact car division. Merkur, M-E-R-K-U-R, 1985 to 1989. Didn't last long, but what they were doing was bringing in European-built Ford models. And I'll tell you what, they were neat cars. They were very good cars. They didn't have the support from Ford. Moon. Oh, yes, Moon. Not Moon Eyes. Has no relation to Moon Equipment Company, but the Moon Car Company was an American automobile company that was located in St. Louis, Missouri. The company had a very good reputation among the buying public, and but again, finances and financial conditions didn't work real well for them. Mosler, M-O-S-L-E-R. From 1993 to 2013. Interesting. This is a company of making American sports cars in Riviera Beach, Florida. It was founded in 1985 by Warren Mosler and Consular Industries. They manufactured what was now the now defunct Consular GTP car, which was later rebranded and updated as the Mosler Intruder. Okay, so it was a startup company that just didn't quite make it. We talked about Nash being part of American Motors. They were founded in 1916, and then from 1937 to 1954, Nash was part of the AMC group, or the group of vehicles that became AMC. Nash Motors was an automotive division of Nash Kelvinator. And for those of you old enough to remember the Kelvinator refrigerators, yeah, they made more money making refrigerators than they did cars. Oakland, from 1908 to 1931, became what was now known as the Pontiac. Oldsmobile, 1897, one of the early brands of automobiles. General Motors killed them in 2004. Why? For the same reason Ford killed Mercury. If you're not going to support the brand, and you're not going to highlight the brand, and all you're going to do is rebadge your other brands to say that brand, like you got the Olds Omega. What was the Olds Omega? It's the same thing as the Chevy Citation. It ain't going to work. And it didn't, and Oldsmobile went away. Packard 1899 through 1958, and they started losing favor. They were a competitor to Cadillac and the Highline Lincolns and so forth, but financially they weren't as strong. They merged with Studebaker in hopes of saving themselves, and all that ended up happening was Studebaker made the Packard Baker, and they basically rebadged and retrimmed some of the Studebaker models, and Packard lost all identity and went out of business in 1956. Rambler was part of AMC, but started in 1897 through 1914 as its own brand. Then from 1958 to 1969 was part of American Motors Corporation. They were at Kenosha, Wisconsin. Reliable Dayton lasted 3 years, 1906 to 1909. Saturn, it was General Motors' attempt at a new brand, totally new brand, new dealerships, new attitude, new way of doing business. It didn't work. The hierarchy at General Motors merged Saturn in with the regular brands and closed them down. Now, when General Motors went into their reorganization during the past administration, Saturn was up for sale. Penske was going to buy Saturn, was going to make a whole dealership network, keep the ones that were there, and improve it. Generous Motors, in their infinite wisdom, shut it down. No, we're not selling it to you. They put all the Saturn dealers out of business, all the employees out of business, closed the manufacturing plants. Penske would have kept them open. General Motors shut them down. So that was just part of the reorganization that happened back then. Staver, 1907 to 1914, a very luxurious looking vehicle, was manufactured in Chicago, Illinois by Staver Carriage Company from 1907 to 1914. Interesting. Stearns Knight, very nice looking car, an expensive car, one that was supposed to compete against the Packards and the Cadillacs. Studebaker. Now this company had a very long history. They started out in 1852 building Conestoga wagons. The Studebaker brothers were well known for their South Bend, Indiana location. They were founded in 1852, incorporated in 1868 as the Studebaker Brothers Manufacturing Company. The firm was originally a producer of wagons, buggies, carriages, and harnesses. They went into the manufacturing business of automobiles and made a stout vehicle, very reliable vehicles, but they were cash-starved as well, and poor management on the part of their upper management when the Studebaker brothers and their family pulled out of operations. The people like Erskine and so forth didn't manage the company properly, and by 1966, they were gone. They tried merging with Packard, as I said earlier, but that ended up being the downfall of Packard even further. So Studebaker lived on in our minds, and they made some very popular and good body styles. One of the cars that's still my favorite is the Avante. It was a beautiful four-seat, and I'd call it a sport GT, I guess you could say, with the supercharger on it. Andy Granatelli took them to Bonneville and set numerous records with the Avante. It was a very stylish car. Avante lived on under different ownerships for many, many years. Its last incarnation was basically a modified Camaro. Willys. Now, if you're into racing, the Willys is a car that's popular for gassers, but they made a number of cars. They were in business from 1908 to 1963. And Willys' last vehicles were the Jeep, and the Willys name was prominent on that. After World War II, Willys, or Kaiser as it was, were given the opportunity to take over the Jeep production after World War II. Ford declined, not seeing the benefit of the vehicle, and Willys took it in and started producing civilian versions of the Jeep. They continued to build military as well, but the civilian version of the Jeep has lived on and is still on today. They had the right idea. Ford didn't see it. The error of their ways, but who knows what Ford would have ended up doing with it. All right, so that's just a synopsis of some of the brands from the United States that are no longer with us. There are other brands still coming and new brands for the U.S. market that have been very popular, and some of them not so popular, but some you may not have even heard of. Anteros. What is Anteros? 2005, it's a present. They're a coach builder, and they build a sports car manufactured in California. It's based on the C6 Corvette, but it's a separate manufacturer. I don't know what they're doing. I've never even seen one. Orica Motors is a startup based out of Santa Clara, California. It develops proprietary electronic powertrains. Interesting. That's the wave of the future, I guess. BXR. Well, 2008 until present, but no information. Custom Craft Cars, 2013 to present. They're considering a new startup company or active brands. Dodge, yeah. Here's another one. Equus Automotive. Started up in 2014. The Equus 770 is a handcrafted luxury muscle car that I've never even seen. Most of these I haven't. Now, the Ford Falcon name is known synonymous with Ford economy cars. But there is a company that started up in 2009 called Falcon Motorsports. It's an American manufacturer of high-performance automobiles, most notably the Falcon F-Series, the Falcon F5, and the Falcon F7. The Michigan-based company was founded in 2009 by an American automotive designer and engineer, Jeff Lemke. Falcon Motors. Be interesting to see one of these cars. I've not seen them. Hennessy, as we know, modifies many cars and is known for his modifications, but he's considered an auto manufacturer. Panos makes some super race cars and has made some street vehicles as well. Niama Reiser. It's Niamareisser from 2005 to present. Okay. Polaris, we know them for their off-road vehicles, and they are considered an auto manufacturer. RaceFab, 1991 to present, they make some super-looking race cars. No question about it. Now, Chrysler decided to spin off the Dodge truck division and call it its own division and calling it the Ram Trucks from 2010 till present, and that's considered a separate brand. Rezvani, Rezvani, 2014 to present, they make a really high-line sports car that is just amazing looking, but I've never seen one. They're based out of Irvine, California. Interesting. Rivan. It's an auto manufacturer started up in 2009 to make sustainable vehicles. So you can probably think that is electric. Saleen, well, he's been on and off since 1980, modifying Mustangs and making his GT car. Tesla, as we know, 2003 to present. Tryon Supercars. Now, they're an American-based company making supercars, competing against the Lamborghinis and so forth. Zimmer, 1978 to 88, and then 1997 to present, was an auto manufacturer based in Syracuse, New York. The original company was founded in 78 as Zimmer Motor Cars. They modified vehicles, making neoclassics. What they're making now, no one knows, but they're in business, incorporated in 1997. All right, I'm Hot Rod Bob. That's a little bit of automotive information for you. So you can, when you're sitting at the bar and you want to throw something at someone, you say, well, Rambler. Yeah, I bet you don't know about that. Let me tell you about the Rambler. Or the Zimmer. Or who knows what. I'm Hot Rod Bob. You've got Gas, the morning edition. I keep you informed with trivia and other information about the automotive industry. Take care, folks. I'm Hot Rod Bob. You've got Gas, the morning edition. Thanks for tuning in. You are a gasaholic. Take care now. Vicky Gasparelli, how are you doing today? Hope to see that funny car team out there racing.